what you're looking at with 5.56 is you're looking for a muzzle device suppressor combination that will allow you to shoot, unsuppressed inside of a home and not blow your situational awareness or your ears out of the water.
All right, what is up, everybody? I have Jim to my right and Chris from Vortex Edge across from us. Jim, real quick, people, they're missing you because you're kind of you flow in and out. You're like water.
That. That's nice of people.
With the Vortex Nation podcast, people are like, it's not the same. I agree.
Thanks.
I like having you here. I like having Chris more though. Chris, what's up, dude?
How you guys doing, man?
Well,
good.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
Look at that. Is that the classic Wisconsin passive aggressive, or was that just aggressive? What is Wisconsin passive aggressive that you always talk about?
Wisconsin passive aggressive.
Maybe it's Midwest.
I don't
know.
I don't even know what. That was something new entirely.
It was a new level of.
That was cruel.
Yeah, it was kind of targeting. Here I started off with a compliment, just completely ruined it. Sorry.
Backhanded.
Yeah.
Well, no. That would be like, wow, you lost way more weight than I ever would have thought you could have. That's like a good backhand compliment. I don't know.
You're still fat.
Whatever
but
you did, whatever you did, I just don't know what to call it. But it was.
Well, I'm not sitting here thinking
time.
to myself, Dad just hit Mom at the table. Let's put it that way. So
Yeah.
You are or not?
I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I'm not getting that vibe right now.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
What I was trying to do was, because I am so excited about having Chris here, that I was trying to be like, convey that, but in the process, I was a jerk.
Yeah. It took us a really long time to finally start recording, and now we're already still just
Completely
Fine.
sidetracked.
That's
bullcrap
we're giving the people what they
conversations.
want, right? So
I don't think so.
They
No?
clicked on this episode thinking they were going to talk about.
AR-15s for home defense.
That sounded like the robot at the self-checkout aisle. You have one AR-15 for self-defense, or whatever it is.
Here's the deal, and we got a couple on the table. Thanks, Chris.
you're welcome.
But the AR-15, as we know, comes in every shape, size, color. We talk about them in terms of being application specific, and you can make them purpose built for whatever the heck you want. And for the purpose of this conversation, we're talking home defense, which there's some specialty to it, I guess, if you will.
Some nuance, if you will.
Yeah.
Yes. We talked a little bit about. Actually, I don't know if it will have released this before or after this podcast released, but in the Vortex Edge podcast, Chris and I talked a little bit about carbine versus pistol for home defense, and the consensus was that there really isn't necessarily a right and a wrong answer between those two. There's pros and cons to each. And so it's highly possible and likely that we will do another episode about the pistol setup and all that for home defense, but we're going to kind of concentrate on one. And I think that Chris has two examples here on the table. Now, Chris being Chris, and I think that you will get to know him either through episodes you've listened to on this podcast or from listening to the Edge podcast. Chris loves gear, and he likes to kit his stuff out he likes to go fast, and so there's a lot going on with these guns. So I'm curious as we go through this, what Chris's things are that are like, yo, this thing is a must versus I just like this thing. Maybe you don't need to go as full psycho as me.
The nice part about what I feel we have here is like, here's everything, and then what's right for you, you can dial it back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or you might just want to dial it up to Chris level, because I like what I'm saying.
Maybe you do. I did just notice, though, you're not rocking a laser on either one of these. I've seen both of these guns with lasers on them before.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll get in.
We'll
anyway,
talk about
so
that, yeah.
okay. So you're not full psycho, but
Whoa.
I'm psycho on a budget, let's say. Is that fair?
no, it's not. Look, no, understanding what's on the table here. It's
I don't
still
think
not
we should.
budget.
We shouldn't be using the word psycho because it's not an accurate portrayal. We're using it slang wise. People might misinterpret it.
Right.
I think those people
I don't actually have a mental condition.
Those people
Some
probably
would say.
don't. I'm sorry,
They're
but
not
they probably don't. Or they're not regular listeners. I don't think. Or at least
No.
they may not have. Anyway, Chris is not psychotic, and this is actually a very level-headed approach to home defense.
You know how
Not
people like
donkey-brained.
to.
I know these days it's like everyone's trying to.
Well, then they can like cut up
it's
what you say.
hedge you
so
off at
then,
the pass.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
going
yeah.
through this valley of the shadow of death, and there's all these.
Yeah. All of a sudden, people like take excerpts of what you said, and they're like, Chris is a psycho because he hates AR-15, or loves AR.
Deep fakes out
I
there.
tell you what, if you hate AR-15s, you're a psycho. There, I said it.
Way to go. Okay.
I support that message.
So, Chris, carbine for home defense. We've
Yes.
talked a little bit about some of the pros and cons. Why don't you just briefly go over some of the pros and cons of the carbine? I'm sure that's going to dovetail into some of how we set them up. Because just to kind of give a teaser to what we're probably going to talk about here, we have ARs here that are of different barrel lengths, and therefore also the handguard and just the whole package as a whole is shorter. We've got both of them actually happen to have suppressors on them. I'm curious to talk a little bit about that in a home defense context. We've got a red dot. We've got one with a low power variable with an offset red dot. We've got kind of like, I want to talk about slings, do you use one at home? All this stuff. So there's a lot to this, but
storage, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
So real quick though, like very high level, some of the pros and cons to having an AR as your home defense rig.
I like having the AR as an option because I feel I can comfortably put this in one of my loved ones' hands and just say, hey, I need you to stay here, watch that door. If anything other than like one of us comes to it, take the safety off and go, right? Okay. It's a very simplistic way to like, hey, just put the red thing on the bad guy, safety off, and do this. You know what I mean? So I think that's something that lends itself well to like making other people assets in your home defense plan.
And it's a little bit easier to maintain a higher degree of accuracy and marksmanship with a rifle, as we all know, than it is with a pistol. If your experience is more limited on the pistol side of things.
That's what I'm getting at.
Most people are. It takes more work to get better with a pistol.
Yep. I mean, we've all seen the movies where like dude just like throws a handgun to someone and say, "Hey man, watch, do that." But then I mean, the reality is like less points of contact with a handgun, lots more room for error. So I like to be able to prop this thing up, say, hey, just stay here, watch that, do the thing. You know what I mean? If the need arises. Also, more standoff distance, right? I'm really comfortable shooting 25 yards. I mean, I've certainly taken shots further out than 25 yards, but this buys me like beyond a shadow of a doubt accuracy and reliability. In what some would call like CQB distance, right? Especially like if I'm covering like a long hallway or something, I know that this thing is going to be, I just need to put the thing on the thing and I'm good. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I've always held that, guns are violence at a distance. So if I had to pick like really quickly between something that, 25 and in, I'm pretty comfortable with. But if I can go like 0 out to like 50 and I comfortably cover all those areas that I might have inside of a home, then I'm good. Not saying that I have like a 50-yard distance inside of a home, but man, I can really reach out and touch something reliably. You know what I mean? With a round that's moving, pretty quickly and has a small surface area.
Mark's house has a few 50-yard corridors.
I would imagine so. His estate, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The gated community. Yep.
I was just about to ask if that was like a humble brag from Chris. Like, when you're shooting across your 50-yard home.
Yeah.
Maybe if I'm looking up the road, but no, not inside my home, not by any means. But
well, what about like possibly an advantage? And I think you mentioned slings earlier, Jimmy. It was either before or in the intro, but like, is that a potential advantage that you can, drop the firearm but still maintain it without having to reholster necessarily?
I would say so.
Is that anything you think about, or am I just...
Well, it is nice because you have the sling is like your holster, but you didn't have to put on a belt and all the stuff to get it to be, you know what I mean? So like you could jump up and theoretically be in your boxers, but have this thing holstered. Whereas if you have a pistol, then you got to put on the pants with the belt, with the holster, with the, so there's a little bit.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. Do I keep like my appendix rig and holster like by my nightstand?
Oh.
You know what I mean? Sure, but I'm not like putting that on onto like my joggers or my shorts or whatever it is I'm sleeping in, and then I have the ability to, like, if I did need to use it, well, now what? You know what I mean? I don't have. Am I really gonna reholster a gun that heavy into my pants into something like shorts or a jogger? No, heck no. I'm not gonna be thinking about that. I'm just gonna grab it and go, right. And I think one of the cool things that, diving a little bit into the setup. about having a sling on the carbine, like to your point, I can just sling that thing and still be in 100% control of it and be working on stuff and be solving problems. If I haven't dumped it off with a loved one and said, hey, watch that door, right? If I'm barricading a door, so to speak, if I'm putting wedges under doors and stuff like that.
I was wondering what that was.
I can, we can talk about these a little bit, but I love them for home defense and other applications. But yeah, it's a great way to retain the gun, right? Make sure that it's not being flagged all over the place. And but with a handgun, like I'd have to make a choice. Like all right, I've got this thing, but I have to go like jam the door or something. I'm not going to just put it down and like have kids running around potentially, and or put it in a place to where now I'm stressed out and I forget things easily anyway. Not that that's any excuse, but like if I put a handgun down and I go to do something, I'm suddenly like, where's my handgun? And I don't want to create like that much more of a delay. If this thing is on me, I know it's slung, I know it's ready. I can go perform the tasks necessary and then get right back on it. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the nice things of having a sling, like you said.
Very clothing non-specific.
100%, yes. And it's like you said, man. Just it's the carbine's way of solving that retention issue, without having another piece of gear, so to speak.
And I don't think by any stretch of the imagination we're saying, "Oh, a pistol's not a good for a home defense thing."
No, not at all.
And I don't even.
No,
I don't
it has
think
its own pros and cons.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to make that clear before.
And like we said, it's another future episode. Can you describe on the table? We have two different options in front of us that you brought along, and can you describe kind of what it is about them that you feel makes them great, home defense carbine setups?
Yep, I'll talk about this carbine in black here, and guys, of course, for those who aren't watching, this is a 14.5 inch pin and welded Daniel Defense M4A1.
Okay.
I want to talk about this one first and foremost because a lot of people will ask, like, well, hey, what carbine can I get that will kind of cover a broader spectrum of applications? And I think this is a great option, right? It's legally shorter than a full 16-inch gun, right? But it actually does provide a shorter kind of profile in that aspect. So it's a little, you get a little more maneuverability out of this thing. You know what I mean?
I just want to address that real fast in case someone's listening here, very new to the world of AR-15s and such. So rifles have to have a minimum barrel length of 16 inches in order for you to not have to register them with the NFA to be SBRs, short-barreled rifles. Now, if you have a 16-inch barrel and it's threaded, usually you're going to put a muzzle device on the end, like a flash hider or a muzzle brake or something like that, which are another topic entirely. But then that will further add on to the 16 inches. So what some people have done is they have chopped the barrel shorter to about 14.5 inches, and then they pin and weld on, you can call it permanently, it's deemed permanent, the muzzle device, which then the muzzle device is what takes it to 16 inches. And so therefore, you're at actually 16 inches, not like 17 and a half.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
to your point, like if you guys watching, you can see that little weld mark. That's where like at the factory, this device was kind of made to be technically a part of the barrel, therefore giving you that satisfactory 16-inch.
Sorry to interrupt. That was my commercial.
Nope,
No, that's good. That's a good clarification, Jim.
Yep. So yeah, and especially to the point of like if you're looking for a first rifle, right? I think this is great. Right, it's not going to be like a musket length, 16-inch gun.
Musket length,
and it's a great starter gun. I mean, in fact, when we put people through our intro to carbine class, they shoot a 14.5 gun. You know what I mean? I just think they're great utilitarian guns that would make a solid first purchase. And I mean, I was active duty Marine Corps. We took 14.5-inch guns and did CQB all day long with them. You know what I mean? And we're fine. But you try to do that with like a 16-inch, 18-inch gun, it starts to become a little bit of a hassle. Not that it can't be done; it has been done, but I just like this setup for having more options.
While barrel length is the topic of conversation, I think the reason why it's a topic of conversation here is because we're talking about being inside your home, and you may need to move within your home. Now we have another episode you and I did about like CQB,
Right.
which is like close quarters battle, not really being a great home defense plan. And so that's kind of one thing entirely. You still may need to move throughout your home though with your firearm. And so having something that's a little bit more, shorter is less unwieldy, less gangly, less potential to be knocking around in your hallways, for example, right?
Well,
Or
yeah, I mean,
going through doors.
you're navigating in an interior environment where you have walls, corners, coffee tables,
No
kids'
posts.
toys. No, what now?
No posts.
Oh, no, yeah,
Fix the no post.
they'll get you.
But anyway, so like that 14.5, which of course is pin and welded to be 16 inches, that's kind of more of a standard length AR.
Right.
And so, you have this one on the table here, which I presume to be, 10.3?
10.3 inches.
10.3, okay, to be exact, because it's a Mark 18. Yeah, so what is it that makes your 14.5 here a better example for somebody who's looking for a more do-it-all AR? Why isn't the shorter AR, equally as do-it-all? Or is it just really that it's a little bit more of a process to get, being that you have to go through the SBR paperwork and stuff like that? So this is just more of like, are you saying it because this is more of an immediate, like, you get it and go?
100%. Yeah, you can walk into a gun store right now, depending on where you live, and just like purchase one of these,
Right.
And
walk out with it.
And walk out, yeah, and you're
Pretty
fine.
much, yeah.
You know what I
with
mean? With the exception of like having like a an optic system on it, it'd be ready to go right out of the box. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter like make, manufacturer. You can walk out of most stores with like a 14.5 pin and welded, or if you wanted to, like a 16-inch gun, and just be completely fine.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I will throw, again, just for the sake of clarification and dotting our I's and crossing our T's, when we're talking about walking out, provided you pass
the background check and there's an exchange of money and funds, right? I don't recommend like walking to a gun store or picking
What a
something
time
off
to be alive. We have to have all these
disclaimers.
I get it, Mark. I totally
well,
understand.
you hear like when you
all these people are like, well, anybody can just go and just
because it's not like that at all. Like
no,
there's a
you
process,
gotta
right?
go through stuff, but provided you pass all that, you're law-abiding, American citizen, all that. Yeah. So
good.
anyway, but this is a more immediate. You can get it, you can go, you can start shooting with it, training with it, and then using it for home defense.
100%. And I can tell you from experience. I don't know, 50 and in, comparable performance out of both, right?
from like the user standpoint or from a accuracy standpoint,
Yes.
or both?
I would say both. You
Okay.
know what I mean? Like, I can hold really tight groups at 50 with the shorter barrel and maybe slightly tighter at 50, just more consistent maybe with this 14.5, but the performance is going to be just the same. Like I can run them just as hard. It's almost a wash in my opinion, 50 and in, right? I zero both of them at 50. That's the only reason I say that. But beyond that, I would say if I had to be honest, like if I had to, and I mean, Grantham and Admin Results just did a video on this. Like, you're going to struggle a little bit, like beyond 200 yards, right? Just the groups are going to open up naturally. I mean, that's just
You're referring to the shorter one.
the shorter one, yeah. So that's why I just say, guys, like a great first time buy, like this is going to do a lot more for you. Like I feel comfortable like going to like a scoped carbine class or that kind of environment. Where you're kind of stretching the legs and the capability of a 5.56 cartridge or a 2.23 cartridge. With this guy,
The longer one.
the longer one,
We have listeners, remember?
right?
It's
The
not all
longer one,
video.
yes, the one nearest to me here. Or if I needed to do like a CQB class or something for that kind of context, I would also be able to do this. So it's kind of like a Leatherman or a Swiss Army knife of the gun world, in my opinion. I've always been a big 14.5 fan. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but short guns are cool though too.
Short
right?
guns are awesome.
So my question was going to be that while we're talking about length,
Mm-hmm.
looking at, like, let's say you're like, my primary use for an AR is going to be interior home defense. Would you be like, well, in that case, then I would, go through the process of getting an SBR and like, would you, like, if you were going to pick one that was just for home defense, would you pick the shorter one?
Because I'm a nerd and because of like the background I have, I would say yes.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Do you think that's a realistic way to look at it though? Okay, like,
don't know.
now, hey, I'm not going to discourage anybody from going and buying, more guns, right?
Yep.
So, like, by all means, all the whatever those were, the context aside, but like, if you're buying an AR and you're like, oh, the only thing I'll use this for is home defense, especially for somebody who hasn't done a lot of shooting or hasn't done a lot of training or whatever, like I don't think that's a great way to look at it. You know what I mean? You're going to want to buy something that you're going to also be training with, also potentially using, at varying distances. Yeah, I think it helps somebody learn a lot about their firearm, about them as a shooter if they stretch out the distances occasionally and stuff like that. So I don't necessarily think that you should look at it as like this. The only thing this will be used for is
no, but I think there are people who buy an AR for pretty much a single-minded application, or there are people who go, "This is my 10th AR, and I want one for my house." That's what that's for.
I think that's fair.
And that's fair. Yeah, I think that's a stark kind of difference to kind of point out, right? Like, if I'm saying I need one gun, right, I would go here. But because
a little bit longer,
a little longer, like 14.5, like I've been saying, right? But if I'm looking to pick up like my second AR, right, I would probably venture off into this. But if you're saying like I'm only looking to get one AR, but it's going to be heavy, like all I'm going to use it for is home defense. The minute that you step out your door with that thing, you know what I mean? You're like, crap, like the world is long. You know what I mean?
There's other things.
There's other things out there, right? So
I thought it was flat. It's not flat, apparently.
Right. I think some people, will tend to look at their home defense rig as also then doubling into, and we've had some podcasts like this, Mark, like your prepper rig, like your doomsday rig,
your prepper, your recce rig, your
something like that. So in which case, that's where so if we're gonna pick one gun, that's all I was getting at.
You can accomplish a whole lot with either one, either the 10.3 or a 14.5. But I would say again, your first AR out of the box, I would maybe steer more to, and that, as much as that hurts me to say, because I am a huge apologist for the 10.3. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would lean people more this way.
Right. Can we talk about caliber?
Oh, that's what I was just going to do anyway.
Were you?
Yeah.
Do it.
Which I think is perfect because we just talked. Okay, let's just talk about it because that was the next thing on my list too.
223 or 5.56. We all know 5.56 is better because it's metric. I'm just kidding. Anyway, but like 223, 5.56, very common. It's arguably the most common. I would say the most common cartridge that is fired out of an AR platform. Now, there's a much ado in terms of conversation around 223 inside of your home, let's say, right? And so that in and of itself is a conversation. Like people talk about overpenetration. Let's say you miss, which you don't ever set out to do, but stuff can happen. You miss. What's going to happen to that bullet? It doesn't just vanish into thin air as soon as it crosses the plane of said threat in your home. So there's that. Now, another, I would say, very common cartridge that is in AR platforms and that is oftentimes associated with close quarters, and you also have suppressors on these, which is another topic of conversation, but is, of course, the 300 Blackout. And that has conversation around it. And, I've even scratched my head at times with, like, what is the final verdict? Because some people say, well, all right, if you're getting the 300 Blackout because you want to suppress it because that can be nice inside of a house, you're not blowing out your eardrums and, like, really disturbing everyone else's kind of psyche. Well, then you have to shoot subsonic. Are the subsonic rounds good enough to stop a threat? And so there's a lot going on with, like, cartridge selection, caliber selection. What are your thoughts there? These are both 223 guns.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I'll say, we'll just say 223 to make it easy.
To keep it simple, yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So the first exposure I ever had to 300 Blackout was watching a buddy shoot at a range at 100 yards, and he had subs.
Okay.
I mean, it was like I'd never heard of the thing. This is back in 2010 or so. You know what I mean? And I just remember having an appreciation for how high above the target he had to hit. He had to aim to hit at 100 yards and the time of flight. I was like, this is nuts. Why would anyone want this? You know what I mean? And full disclosure, I've never seen like what 300 Blackout looks like interacting with tissue. But I hear a lot of people do take that kind of cartridge and go hunt with it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, am I right? I've never been hunting before, but I've heard stories. I took this deer, this buck with 300 Blackout, and it had great effects.
Right. And I don't know how many people are doing that with subs, though. I think a lot
they're
of times
mostly using the supers.
Like 158 grain soft point or something like that. That's what I have, at least for my 300 Blackout AR that I've thought about taking hunting at. Truth be known, I haven't done it yet, though. Let's see.
Now, I have taken a couple raccoons with 300 blackout. Like if you get home invaded by raccoons, like 300 blackout is the way. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Subs and all. Like it's gonna get the job done.
Because you're pushing what, like a 200 green pill or something like that out of the.
I've got some 220 OTMs.
Okay,
that's what we got down at the range.
And those are the subs or the supers?
The subs.
Subs.
Very much
Okay.
sub.
Yep. So I mean, you're increasing the surface area, so I would imagine you would get a more reliable, like less ability to go beyond what you're shooting at.
Right.
You get an immediate dump of energy. That's kind of where my head goes with it.
Big hole.
Right. Yeah. A lot of energy being transferred there. But again, I'll put it out there. I just don't have a ton of experience watching it in action. Right. With 5.56, I mean, I've been shooting. 2.23 and 5.56. I've been shooting this stuff for 2 decades. Like I've seen firsthand what it does to like
tissue
Threats.
a various array of media. Let's say, you know what I mean?
Things that are trying to hurt you.
Right. So, yeah, and I think another kind of consideration there is that a lot of us will just buy a bunch of ammo. Say like. For example, just spitballing here, but like I go and I want to start training. I want to be a better prepared person. I just go and invest in 1,000 rounds of 55 grain ball, which is maybe one of the most common 5.56 2.23 rounds out there, right? And then so you go to the range, you train, you go to your class and you train, but then that's kind of what you load up for home defense. You know what I mean? And I think that can be something that needs to be talked about, because I think like a smaller round like that, like a 55 grain moving as fast as it is, I think white boxing, like some of the 55 grain we have at the range, I mean, it's pushing 3K plus in terms of muzzle velocity.
Screaming.
Right, screaming. And it's a solid bullet. So, yeah, you may have to consider, like, those rounds passing through walls and, you know, maybe even your intended target. So, I've certainly seen the effects that training ammo, I'm going to call it, has moving through multiple different things. I've seen that. We put those kind of demonstrations on for people, you know, back in my old police department. So, but there's a lot to be said about rounds that are specifically made to be defense rounds in that area. You know what I mean? Like I've seen some really, really cool results. In fact, I've been in houses where above me there's stuff going on, and I know for a fact they're shooting down into the room I'm in, and I'm fine. In fact, there's no passing through. That round is finding its mark, and I'm going to be good to go. You know what I mean? So I've seen that firsthand for myself. Specifically, a certain round called the Ranger round, I believe, from Winchester. Yeah, it's just like a if you've seen like a Hornady Spire point, which is just like a kind of like a filled in tip, kind of like akin to like a Hornady tap round.
Okay.
Right. They're just designed around like dumping their energy, flattening out, and stopping. Right. I think that really lends itself well to being a trusty home defense gun. Right.
For sure. I mean, we talk about bullet construction all the time.
Yep.
In terms of hunting, you know, we talk about deer hunting or this, or maybe you have an awkward angle where you're going to need a lot of penetration, or you want a lot of penetration, or you want that bullet to hold together. But then, you know, conversely, you can talk about the same things. Oh no, actually, I want a bullet that's gonna, you know, expand quickly, or
right.
You know, or
right.
It's interesting that it's really a similar discussion.
It
is
is
a lot of ways.
100%, yeah.
But in a lot of ways, you also want the reverse. Depending, like you're like, oh, I don't want a lot of penetration. You know, like.
Yeah. Yeah. I would just encourage you guys, like, to the listeners, like, really do your homework. There's a lot of information out there available in terms of ballistic testing, different barrel lengths and how that impacts, you know, the terminal muzzle velocity of a round. Like, do your homework, and yes, I encourage you guys to train, like get bulk ammo, go to the range, take classes, do all that stuff, but then like take a hard look at what you're going to choose to defend your home with, because that, I think there needs to be a conversation had there, and how those things can differ. Right, and those are two different solutions. I think I don't want to shoot like my defensive rounds, like and incur that cost.
That's expensive.
It can be.
It's hard to train with.
3 to 4 to 1 times the cost of like just training ammo, but like you need to train as well, right?
What do you find, speaking of that, like, you want to, if you're going to, have this and you want to use it for that application, you want to train with it. So you're training, like you said, with training ammo, which is less expensive. You can shoot it at a higher volume for less money. Likely not the choice to put in your mags when, you have it ready for go time. But what about like zeros? Do you see much POI shift between your training ammo and then the drip rounds that you're going to use for, defensive work?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. So we shoot with either a 55 grain. Again, going back to my statement earlier, it's one of the more common training or bulk ammunitions that you find out there for these kind of guns, right? But we also have like 62 grain, which is a great round to train and kind of collect data with. And then I would say the Gucciest round we have down at the range is that 75 grain stuff. I mean, it's great. And
that's
I've
an
seen,
OTM, right?
Yes,
open tip match.
And I have seen what that stuff does to tissue. It's very good at what it's designed to do.
Is that what you shot that coyote with when we went out that one time, Jim?
No, that was a 69 grain boat tail hollow point.
Oh, never mind.
Yep. So OTM, boat tail hollow point, that stuff. I mean, I'm a big fan because I've seen it for myself. You know what I mean? Now, there may be people that disagree. But I'm telling you from like my experience, that stuff will get the job done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then, again, I'm not going to shoot that in bulk.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to play bullet holes at 7 yards with that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that starts to add up.
Yeah. But typically, if I put like a 62 grain or a 55 grain zero on this gun, or let me back up. If I put a 75 grain zero on this gun, and then for training purposes, I just shoot like a 55 or 62, I'm out of this gun at least. Out of this 14.5, I've seen maybe POIs, point of impact shifts of maybe at most 2.5 inches at 50 yards, which is not a whole lot. You know what I mean? So it's pretty negligible, but it's one of those things that you just have to know for yourself, right? I would highly encourage you to maybe take a box of ammo, of defensive stuff, zero with it, and then see how it behaves in different shooting positions. Your standing position, see how it likes to move it, or how it moves the gun in a good prone position, in a kneeling position, because those would probably be some of the most common ways that you'll like hunker down and defend something, right? And then do the same process with your training ammo, because you want to make sure that just because you're zeroed with this really Gucci ammo, you don't want to look like a jabroni when you can't hit anything with your training ammo, right? Or I would say, like, if we use B8s often to zero a target, and of course, guys, if you don't know what a B8 is, like just Google it. But it basically has that X ring. Then you have a 10, a 9, and an 8. The differences are with 75 grain, I'm punching that X out of this thing, and then with like 55 grain, I might be like on the 10-9 border, low and left a little bit, but that's it. It's negligible at best.
Gotcha.
Where I would say, like, in a home defense situation, if you don't have your magazines properly marked, then you just grabbed that training ammo, being zeroed with like a good defensive round, and you threw it in there quick, it's not going to matter in the distances that we're defending homes with.
Good little hidden pro tip there too about marking your magazines with
100%. Yeah, and that's why I don't have any on the table, but like I put like I actually texture my mags so that I know the smooth ones, that's training stuff. The grippy ones, that's the ones I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had to do that because I shoot 5.56 and 300 blackout, and I never put 300 blackout in a polymer mag, and I never put 5.56 in a metal mag.
I like that.
I like that.
That's a good system. Yeah.
Jim, with your experience or what you know about the 300 blackout, Chris, like one thing that I was reading, it seemed like it made sense. Now, I'm not sure if it was within the context of only subs or supers or both, but they were saying that the muzzle flash was less. So, I don't know if you've heard that at all, Jim, or if that's a thing, or if that's a thing, if you're not using a suppressor, but if you are using a suppressor, then it's not as big a deal. Or what about, let's just talk about muzzle flash and suppressors. Like, is the suppressor going to mitigate that muzzle flash, or same or different, or?
My experience, at least with the 10.3, I do get like maybe first round flash, right? But then subsequent rounds are the signature is almost reduced and it kind of just takes care of itself, right?
Okay.
With the 14.5, I have far less of that. I might have like maybe 1 in 4 range sessions that start with a flash, and then that just kind of goes away. I'm going to be a little controversial here. I don't think muzzle flash is really an important consideration.
Really?
Because if I'm having to defend myself with this in a home, then this person has already made it through layers upon layers of things that I've done to make it hard for them to get in to like hurt me or my family. So they've kind of made that decision for me. They're going to know exactly where I am, and hopefully I have created enough of an angle to that entry point that I don't care if they see that first round. I mean,
you're thinking from a context of them seeing you.
Right.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Right. So
that's less of what I'm concerned about. More what I think about when I think of muzzle flash is how much of a distraction it is to me, because I've got that.
That's fair.
I've
okay.
got that.
That's
little,
where I was.
I've got that.
So how flashy it is.
Oh yeah. I've got that 9.5-inch Robinson Arms thing, and
Jim, I have PTSD of like you shooting that next to me.
I got something to say about that as well.
Well, and so that's one thing that we didn't really discuss about barrel length, but the shorter you go, especially if you're shooting to 23.556,
it's gonna be a little flashier.
It's going to be pretty dragony, and some people think that's cool, but it can also be pretty to the point where when I didn't have a good flash hider, which now I do have, and now I don't see anything, but there was so much fire in my optic that I was looking through that it actually would have made follow-up shots difficult, because it was just I couldn't even see the red dot anymore. I couldn't see anything. It was just a flashbang was going off in front of my.
I also want people to know that I wasn't making light of PTSD or using that slang. I was actually trying to make fun of that ridiculous video.
I'll allow it.
A lot of caveats.
Well,
today.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Because I know that's a super.
That one.
It's that
when that one reporter said he got PTSD from taking one shot out of an AR.
Oh my word!
That's what I was trying to make fun of him.
So all of that being said, I have gone to these close-timed war comps from Surefire on most of my guns. Now I still have one gun that has a full-on muzzle brake on it.
Yeah.
Right. So, in many ways, yes. Do I buy into the fact that maybe the bullet grain or the bullet itself has a lot to do with the flash overall? I think it your muzzle device and your choice there has a lot to say in that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I would never, and I want to stress ever, never shoot that gun that has that muzzle brake anywhere near my family, dude. It's ridiculous, right? It's actually the gun that I plan on taking to the 2-gun section match. Right? Because it's so flat. Because it's directing so much stuff out to the sides and up. It's a really flat shooter, which I need in that context, right? But it's pretty miserable to be around.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's awful. I mean, all I'm seeing, especially with 55 grain, the 62 grain doesn't do it a lot, but that 55 grain, it is launching flame on either side of that thing. It's offensive. You know what
Those
I mean?
guns, they're
it's so bad.
They're loud enough and disruptive enough to knock the farmer next door straight off his tractor.
Oh dear.
Just from the sound alone. Ask me how I know. That was an interesting call to field the day after a range day.
Yeah.
So one thing you do have on here is you have suppressors on here. So, 223, in addition to out of a short barrel being quite flashy, it is also quite barky.
Yes.
Now, on your 10.3-inch barrel, you're able to get away with a longer suppressor, therefore giving you more suppression, more in terms of both sound and flash, I'm sure.
Yep.
Because you're starting with a shorter package. On the 14.5, I noticed that you have the little shorty boy from Surefire here.
Right.
And, I think realistic expectations need to be realized here that a suppressor, whenever despite the fact that it's a suppressor, you're shooting 223, which is going to be leaving the barrel supersonic.
Yep.
It's still going to be loud.
It's still going to be pretty sparty.
I don't think that you
spicy.
have these suppressors on here with the intention of being James Bond and just shooting darts
Yeah, that's not the intent. You're still going to get a pretty decent report out of that thing. There's not going to be any secret about where you're going to be, right?
Yeah.
It's not at all like how Hollywood portrays it, which is where I think that 300 blackout kind of shines, because you do have that like line and sand delineation between super and sub.
Yeah.
Right. Justin and I, we sit at our desks and try to look up like decent. Well, first of all, affordable 5.56 that's sub, and it's kind of hard to find, man. You know what I mean?
And it seems to me like, I know we talked the one time about like shooting subsonics. I actually don't know what the powder capacity in a case for a 223 subsonic would look like, but when you actually have the gun horizontal and the cartridge is horizontal, like, is there just so little powder in there to the point that it's actually not even igniting right with the primer?
Yeah.
I mean, I know nothing about it, but it could be like a more like a voluminous powder, to where like
like a larger kernels or something like that, or maybe they've got, I don't know.
It's call me.
So in general, I mean, what you're looking at with 5.56 is you're looking for a muzzle device suppressor combination that will allow you to shoot, unsuppressed inside of a home, and not blow your situational awareness or your ears, out of the water,
or make the situation tremendously worse for your loved ones that are.
Yeah, that's certainly the thing. I totally get the idea of creating the worst possible experience for an intruder as possible, and their friends maybe that might be waiting in the vehicle.
Yeah. Dude, screw their experience.
Exactly. I am true. We are not caring for them at all.
Oh, no.
They're being like, we're gonna buffalo that situation as much as possible. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to be said about maybe not cooking your loved ones and their hearing. You know what I mean? And that's why, like, I would never take that 16-inch gun with that muzzle brake anywhere near my kids. You know what I mean? Now, my kids have been around like outdoor suppressed shooting. Heck, I've brought them here, and they won't. They let's just say they like shooting the quiet guns more than the loud guns. So I
think everyone does.
Yeah, I'm going to be able to communicate with them if we had to shoot, move, communicate type deal inside of a home, right? I'm not. It's not going to be that thing where I go up to my wife and it's like it's like,
which is interesting, because that's how it is when my wife talks to me. Just regular.
Can I get that soundbite?
I shouldn't have said that.
It's good that she doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Please don't tell her.
Yeah. But anyway, I think cans have their place in home defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they add length. That's the only issue with cans.
Yeah.
They add length to your gun.
Yep. Yep. And I think calling this a true CQB gun, I'm of course pointing at the 10.3 inch gun that I have here, and like calling this not that, you know what I mean? I think that the same amount of movement and manipulations it takes to maneuver this thing in a house, if you just have to exaggerate those a little tiny bit, but you get comparable performance.
Yeah.
I mean, we have students coming into the CQB course that we offered with 16-inch guns, and they're fine. You know what I mean? We just have to like get them maneuvering the gun a little more, and I mean, but otherwise, rock on, man. You can get that job done. Yeah, for sure.
Talk about your optics on here.
Yeah. So
you've got a low power variable on one, you got a red dot on the other.
I do.
Now, some people are of the mindset that a low power variable optic will get you killed in the streets, i.e., the streets of your own inside home.
Yeah.
And now, you also have a red dot offset with your low power variable, so I don't know if you can fully grunt at that statement, because you're still a little attached to the red dot over here.
I do have that.
But low power variable, 1 to 6. So 1 to 4, 1 to 6, 1 to 8, anything that starts on 1 and ends on a higher power. And commonly found on ARs. They're very nice, jack of all trades, if you will. They can do many things well. And like we've talked about a little bit before, okay, let's say you want to use this thing outside of the smaller confines of your home. Boom, it's ready to kind of like move into that space as well. Now, I think though the part where people are like, that's going to get you in trouble is, they see rifle scope and they think confining, or you're looking through a tube much more so than with a red dot, which in some ways, I mean, like if you really boil it down and you're like, okay, what are red dots good at? They're really more like specialized optics. They're really good at close-up stuff. Right. But that's part of the point. They weren't really made to be good at shooting long distance.
Right.
Like they're
right.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts around for the home defense? context, these two optics?
So I think both are good. I'm not going to say that one is not as good as the other. So full disclosure, when I first got the job at Vortex Edge, the very first gun that I was handed was a 14.5-inch gun with this exact optic.
Which is
That's
a
a Razor
That's
1
a
to 6.
Razor 1 to 6. Yeah. Our Gen 2. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I would only ever run red dots. You know what I mean? Ever. With the exception of like an accurized like SPR, like a special purpose rifle.
Yeah.
That's a little longer, which is gonna be anything like 16 inches to 20. For those that are interested, like look up like the Mark 12 program. That's kind of the SPR that I'm talking about. So, you want a little bit of a hotter scope on that because you want to like really stretch its legs out, right? But I quickly found out that, man, if I just change the way that I think about aiming in general, and just reapproach some ideologies that I kind of brought with me to this job, you can run these things pretty hard and fast. You know what I mean? What I really dig about this guy, it has a really, really forgiving eye box. You know what I mean? What I mean by eye box is just my ability to just throw it up in front of my eyes and see what I need to see. You know what I mean? The illumination in this thing, fantastic. You know what I mean? I just need to be able to, especially at the distances we're talking about, right? I don't need to like have my whole world shrink down to this tiny tube like this, and that's all I'm allowed to look through. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of equate it to like when back in the day when James Bond movies would start, you'd have blacked out screen, and then you would have the just the one
barrel.
circle.
Oh, yeah,
exactly. And so that's kind of what you're doing to your awareness when you live through a tube. Now you can accomplish that kind of optic focus even with something like a red dot. It's entirely possible to shrink your world that small, right?
Oh yeah, get way too dug into
it's
little tube.
It's not something that's just unique to the low power variable optics. Did I say that right?
Yeah, good job. He usually messes up.
I say LVPOs.
He does.
I mix it up as well.
We've said it before, but these days the P and the V, nobody knows.
I'm glad I am not. Yeah, but anyway, I found out very quickly, man, you can run these things hard and close and fast. So, but I also understood that like I have to surrender to connecting to the target. Which, if we're being honest, if I'm sitting like 15 feet from like a door that I'm protecting, right? I'm not going to be like living through my scope like this, right?
Okay, right.
With this eye closed and like looking for like a perfect representation of my reticle on that entry point. Right. I am going to be looking at that door, and subsequently, if someone does make it through that thing, I'm going to be looking at them. Right? I'm not going to be like hoping to like see my reticle. I'm going to be target focused, right? So at that point, all I need to do is just turn up the intensity on the illuminated reticle. And one of the cool things about the 1-6 is it's just a dot. I mean, it looks just like the solar or the center dot on a Huey reticle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really, I'm just looking for color. I'm putting that little red bead on bad guy, and whenever I make the decision that I have to defend myself, that's all I need to see.
What are what are some of these ideologies that you had to change? I'm curious when you using a low power variable versus a red dot. Like, was it just that you were so kind of stuck in many ways as seeing anything that's a rifle scope as being something that you have to like live inside and look through, and the only way you can actually use it is by looking through it, and
I have to close this eye.
Yeah,
okay. I have to see and focus on the crosshair or that center reference point on a reticle. So as soon as I broke from that, right? As soon as I stopped looking at the world of these kind of optics through that lens, I was like, oh dang, dude, I can apply that same target connection to just about anything. You know what I mean? So that way, like, even if I found myself like at a low ready, let's say, right, and I still connected to bad dude, I understand that like at the distances we're talking about, I just need to see a flash of that reticle appear where I'm looking, and the rest is history. And then it's about trigger pull at that point. You know what I mean? So,
and if you can present a red dot to your eye, you can present a low power.
100%, man.
Because I mean, the thing is, so looking through a red dot, like I could stand on the other side of the table and look down, and I could see through the red dot, and I could probably even see the red dot itself. And that's kind of the neat thing about it is it's the most forgiving optic to look through. But if you're actually going to be making a halfway decent shot with your rifle and, presenting the gun in a way that you've probably trained for and all that, bringing the optic up to your face, to your eye, then the kinesthetics or whatever that is of that motion is pretty much the same if you're doing it with an LPV or a red 100%. Dot.
And I've become a huge fan and believer in high mounts even for these types of scopes. You know what I mean? So this is an ADM 193 mount. And for the same reason that you said, I can, and this is like the tallest of the mounts, right? The Unity, the Unity Fast for the red dot. But they're both comparable, and I don't have to change a lot about like how I raise my shoulder or bring the optic system up to my eye. You know what I mean? And I don't lose anything in terms of accuracy, especially out of distance. I still have. I understand that I'm going to have an awareness of what this reticle is doing at different distances. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But again, for like home defense, man, I just need to see that center flash of red on the thing that I intend to shoot, and then that's it, man. You know what I mean? But that all comes from understanding like target connection, how our eyeballs work.
I mean, they'll both work famously, and I think honestly, it's like pick which one you want to run and get used to it, and then you'll be used to it. I mean, the red dot, a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit lower profile in a way, or there's less
stuff,
less weight.
Yeah, there's less.
Like if you pick these two, this is way lighter than like this guy here. You know what I mean? So
it's much like we talked about earlier. If you're getting one AR to do everything, right? I think the low power variable is always going to make the most sense in my mind. But if you're getting your third, fourth plus AR and you're like, this one is dedicated to, I train with my other ARs, I'll shoot this one a little bit, but I'm going to keep it as, like strictly for inside or something like that, then, I don't see why not get a red dot in that case, because you've sort of already confined the gun to just one use. But if you want to have your gun be a little bit more like a chameleon, then I think, the chameleon of scopes is that. Variable.
No, I agree. Both of them have lights.
They do. I was going to actually look for an opportunity to throw lights out there. Yeah. Yep.
Very important.
I'm a big fan of having lights on guns. Yeah. But independent of that, I will still kind of keep this guy by the nightstand. I'm a big fan of also having a handheld light kind of in the fight, so to speak.
Sure.
In fact, I do a demo at Home Defense of using these guys independent of this. So like, I actually posted it on my Instagram account. But what I do is I turn this on, right, and I'll put it like on a dresser.
Oh, the ninja trick. Yeah.
Yeah. So then unfortunately, like we're beings that like are attracted to light. So as soon as like, especially if I've been living in the dark, right, planning my home invasion and everything, and I get in there, and the first thing that I see when the door flies open is this light. I'm going to fixate on that. Well, what better place to be than not at the light source and be kind of off angle. Mm-hmm. I think it gives
ambush.
It gives and if you think that you have to fight these fights fair, then you're going to get your ass kicked. You know what I mean? I am all about creating just the most less than desirable kind of, like I said, experience for an intruder.
Let's be honest. The British and the Americans way back when really figured the whole thing out for us. You don't have to stand in a line across from the bad guys.
Guerrilla warfare, man.
Volley shots at them whenever. When you want to win, just start cheating.
Yep. It's not a gentleman's game.
And plus, I'm not going to kick this guy. And guys, what I'm doing is I'm actually pressing the button on this tail cap to activate the light. I'm not going to do that and like help my kids and my wife find stuff.
Not with the light that's attached to the pointing end of your.
No, or if I'm looking for them, I'm not going to do this with the light and like point.
I shudder.
Or like tell a ghost story.
Right, exactly. I will, however, do that with a handheld.
I shudder at the thought, even though we do know of stories of people like with pistol lights who take out the pistol light and start, using that to look around for things on the ground.
Ma'am, can I see your license? I'll help you find it. Yeah. No, dude, don't do that.
Everything checks out. Bang. Carry on. Right. Carry on. Why don't you just go about your day?
Plus, PID is nice, right? When bad guy does make it into your hard room, it's really nice to have an independent light source.
PID,
100%, right?
Or like what's the...
Mark's asking what you're talking about.
Positive identification.
Yes.
Other instructors use other words, but I think that just that PID process of accounting for both hands, right? They've kind of taken all the other necessary steps out of it by forcing themselves into the room, right? Especially if they're armed with, they've kind of made that decision for you. You know what I mean? In many ways, but I still think that there's a lot of value in being able to identify if someone is a threat, especially in a situation where maybe they don't know that you're there. You know what I mean? And then all they have is like a handheld light on them, and they don't know where you are specifically. But I can light them up and get a full idea of what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yep. I think the lights have a a lot of uses in that context.
For sure. Obviously, making the AR like optimal for shooting and control. Something that you want that's going to promote, accuracy and whatever, all those good things. You have kind of like a double hand stop situation going on here. Well, I'm noticing a couple things.
It's got a vertical.
He's got like a vertical foregrip. One is more, and then the other is a little bit curved. But then you also have a hand stop, it appears.
Yeah. So what I've done is
that what that would be?
Yeah.
I'd say that was, that was some good vernacular, Mark.
Yep. To answer your question about this setup in particular, yes, it's parts from two different forward assist kind of systems, right? This is a handbrake from Emissary, and this is the forward attachment of a handbrake kit from Magpul. So the reason that I like that is just it kind of just guides my hand in. And I can feel that the pressure in there, and I just think it for me it just buys me a little more consistency.
You kind of have touch points like fore and aft.
Right.
Then?
Right.
Okay.
Right. I don't know. For me, I kind of dig that, and
I
also,
like it on a shorter gun because if you don't have the can on there, it's helping you in the dark or without like visual confirmation keep from accidentally putting a pointer finger in front of a barrel.
Right.
See, I've got like the little guy, but I don't have the big one. The big one.
Yep.
Maybe you need the big one.
Maybe I need
I'll send you a link, man.
All right.
And also if I had to rest this little nub on something, it's really cool to just kind of put it on something and not depend on like my hand
and
or
be able to like push into the gun a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting sucked in all the way to like this surface. I can stop it here.
Okay.
That's another idea. And then with the vertical foregrip, that's something that I did. That it's one of the first attachments I ever bought for this gun. And I've just yet to change it. Honestly, I would probably want this same setup on here.
Okay.
But there's nothing wrong with it. I've not done it because I haven't convinced myself that I need to yet. You know what I mean? So,
Can we talk more about vertical foregrips?
Sure.
They came on scene and it was like, oh my gosh, that's so
during
cool.
the GWATs.
Yeah. I was
everyone.
like, I want one of those. I saw that dude on the Hurt Locker when he's going up behind his Humvee and he's yelling at that dude for going all cowboy out there trying to defuse bombs or whatever. That was a Hurt Locker, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So bomb defusing one. Yeah, and he's got it, and I'm like, yeah, that guy, that one.
And then
everyone was like, no, vertical foregrips are dumb. But now it's like I see vertical foregrips.
Well, then some states are
time.
like, you shouldn't have that.
Well, yeah,
it makes the gun more murdery.
I actually have gone to the point where I kind of like having them on guns, and I like using them similar to how Chris is using it now. But I think we need to address that like a vertical foregrip isn't necessarily used to just put your whole like meat fist hand on like the whole grip and kind of like, you know what I mean? It's not like a motorcycle handle that you grab onto with your whole fist.
100%. Yep.
You use it probably similar to how I use it. It's almost like a really oversized hand stop that you bring the gun back to your shoulder with that outstretched, in our case, left hand for right-handed shooters. Right?
Yeah, so I like to think of it as I like to keep things pretty consistent in the way I hold a rifle than I do a pistol, right? A pistol, I kind of have this angle where if I open my fingers, there's 45 degrees. They're pointed 45 degrees towards the ground. Same idea with can I?
Yeah.
All right, so if I pick this guy up, you can see
Goody's over there.
You can see like my wrist is kind of at that same angle where if I open my fingers, they'd be at 45 degrees.
Yeah. Right.
But I interact more with the rail. You know what I mean? It's not just like this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Ladies, if your potential boyfriend says, I know how to handle guns, he takes you to the range and holds a gun like this, like find a new boyfriend.
Leave him.
Yep. Anyway, so
Relationship advice.
yeah,
from
good.
Chris.
that advice. But anyway, so yeah, I like either way with either system, either the handbrake or even a vertical foregrip, I will still grab over the top and even run my thumb either over the top here or just kind of lay it at the side where I have more positive. I just feel I'm better connected to the gun. You know what I mean? And I'm able to pull it to the rear.
And that's why it seems like so many vertical foregrips these days have shrunk in their length.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it used to be that you had that old broom handle from Knight's Armament, and I still have one. I want to put it on something for like nostalgia's sake. But every time
Irony, maybe?
Yeah, every
But then
time
you're worried somebody's gonna be like, "You like that?"
yeah, bro.
That's not clone correct, bro.
Yeah. Every time I put it on, though, I'm like, it's like, you know, the way I use a vertical foregrip, I'm like, there's like 4 inches of just unused foregrip still sticking out, and then I take it off.
And I was going to say that's
monopod.
Maybe.
possibly. Yeah, and I was going to say one of the popular things that a lot of guys like to do, a lot of guys and gals, they'll actually chop these and make a handbrake anyway. You know what I mean?
It seems easier just to get that one.
Dude, I really like these things. The handbrake kits. I think they work fine. They get you really connected to the gun.
It seems slightly more ergonomic to what you're trying to accomplish as well.
Yes.
Like you got more of like a 90 there. I mean, it's got a little crease in there. I don't know, but yeah.
But you're not really ever holding it like at a true 90 if you're, in my opinion, holding it right. But I mean, you're still kind of just like getting a lot of your hand in that pocket, and holding onto it, fairly well. Mm-hmm. And I really like that because I feel like if I ever had to go to a low ready and I was holding it like at a 90 degree, I just feel like it takes a little more work to get it back where I need it. Whereas like a good 45 degree, I can just snap it up a little. Quicker for me. Yeah.
I mean, to like put a little more context too, because I don't like it when people say don't do something, they don't give you a reason. I mean, when you hold that vertical foregrip at like 90 degrees, you got your whole fist on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, you're removing your hand from being closer to the bore of the rifle, and you're allowing the rifle just a lot more opportunity to wiggle around in your grip. When you really clamp yourself in to the AR, you have a lot more control over it.
Yep, and you can pull into your shoulder, right?
Exactly.
Now, I'm a big fan of also, like, if you're going to be pulling rearward, like, get your shoulder active into the gun as well, right? So you almost kind of vice the gun in, right? So but I just feel like attachments like these is really, really help with that.
Yeah.
Quad rails on both. They're back.
For Chris, they never left.
For me, they never left. Yeah. Get off my lawn. No, man. I just, Daniel has dropped the wrist 3, which these are wrist 2s, which are the like you guys just mentioned, the quad rails. I'd be hard pressed to ever be convinced to buy anything other than a quad rail. I'm gonna get canceled.
I get it. Because M-Lock and Keymod, you can put stuff anywhere, but what ends up happening is you wind up sticking a bunch of pick rails and all this other stuff on it anyway, that it's like, well, why did we get rid of the quad rail in the front? I don't know. I think quad rails kind of fill out your hand a little bit nicer, it seems like, and you can put stuff anywhere. Obviously, you got switchology. I think that's a term some people have been coining and saying lately. You got some switchology going on for your light. Obviously, potentially a laser too. You can put your grips on here anywhere. You don't have to be buying accessories online. You have to wait to get shipped to you to adapt something to Keymod or to M-Lock. It's nice.
And the only thing that I give back is weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they are a little bit more portly.
Yeah,
but you've never been afraid of a heavy gun.
Look at those arms, though.
All right, you're gonna make me blush here, man.
Look, now
he's hiding.
Now I'm hiding them.
Self-conscious.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, that's I just like M-Lock and Keymod are. I think they just are a little lighter, less material there, right, up with all the holes and stuff.
Yeah.
These are going to be a little heavier, so I mean that might be something that you think about, especially for
a person could weigh their options on that one.
You're getting better.
That's very good. That was very organic, actually. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
I will say now's the time that I get to say this because Mike isn't here to defend it, but I just don't like M-Lock. I'm Team Keymod or Picatinny. Anyway,
I can see that.
that was for no one else other than just Mike Griffin down at the range.
I can hear Mike Griffin making
Right.
Mike Griffin noises right
what
now.
camp does he fall in?
He's big
Oh,
M-Lock
M-Lock.
guy.
He's-
Loves
big
M-Lock.
M-Lock.
I just
Yeah.
don't like because you put the M-Lock in the slot and then you try to tighten it and then just the little thing inside is spinning around and around. Anyway.
I've had to do a lot of let's say
Finagling.
customization finagling to a M-Lock in my day.
I can't help but notice, Chris, that
Mm-hmm.
between these two guns, so the short one and the 14.5, now you have many accoutrements that you've added. And I don't know if we can there's really not enough time to go into all of them. But, extended mag release button. You've got the nice short throw safety lever. You've got the bad lever for being able to manipulate the bolt hold open and all that with your right hand. You've got a Geisley trigger. You've got the same pistol grips. You've got the same magwell flare thing. A lot of the same stuff. The buttstocks are actually a little bit different. But it's. Do you tend to do that across all of your ARs to try and keep some level of the same? I think people call it like a manual of arms or something like that, where like I know that regardless of which of my ARs I pick up, when I lift my trigger finger up, I'm going to hit this bad lever, and therefore I can hold open my bolt when I pull the charging handle back, or when I go to rack the charging handle back, it's the same charging handle on all my guns. Do you try and do that across the board to just make sure it's all copacetic? Or
Yeah, I do. I just like continuity across the board. So I try to outfit them as much as possible. I think having a charging handle where you can get a positive purchase on the lever and have that be ambidextrous, I think is important. Mm-hmm. I think being able to send that bolt forward or lock it to the rear from either side is important. Now, I will say for the amount of monies that it took to make these guns somewhat ambidextrous, like there are other manufacturers out there that they just come that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you also have to weigh the cost analysis or do a cost analysis of how much it's going to cost you to make a gun ambi, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what that's going to run you, or do I just go with option X that already has those things kind of there? You know what I mean?
And that's tough because, so I've got a few guns that I've done, for example, the mag pull bad lever too, right? And so that's something that you add to pretty standard AR lower, and
I would say,
I think they work phenomenal.
Yep.
But then I went and I decided, okay, I'm going to treat yourself day, and I went and got an ADM gun, right? I got one of their
UACs?
the 13.7 thing, right? So I got that, and what?
13.9.
13.9. Oh, okay. Well, it's 16 in the end, so whatever.
Yeah.
Screw off ATF.
Okay. I need that time. Like,
so I got that. Now that is ambidextrous, and you actually use your trigger finger for a right-handed shooter in order to manipulate the bolt hold open and bolt release, but it's just different enough, right? Because in that case, it's above the magazine release.
yes.
So now I have to consciously remember when I pick up the ADM, I got to reach up a little bit further to hold the bolt open. Whereas with all my other guns, that bad lever's right there.
Right.
And if I had one of is it AXTS? It used to be called something. Or wait, maybe it used to be called AXTS. One of those.
I know what you're talking about. The really nice ones.
Yeah. Anyway, but you get one of those
brother has a
things,
lot of
those
them.
super duper ambi things. It's a different button entirely. I think it's the mag release button. If I'm recalling correctly, it does all the things, and that holds open your bolt. So when you're having to switch, and let's say your gun that you train with, you do that operation one way, and then your home defense gun is a totally different thing. That's not exactly the time that I'm going to want to be telling myself, okay, bad guys in your house, but don't forget if you got to do this thing with your gun, like if you got to charge the gun or you got to do something with it to make it operational, like don't forget it's this way, don't forget it's this way, don't forget, oh, by the way, got to go get my kid. Don't forget it's this way. Like I don't want to be trying to coach myself to remember that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point to maintain that consistency between your ARs.
That's what I've tried to do. And I want to make to where like any member of my family can like run this guy and immediately like get into this guy, and it's the same manual of arms, like you said. You know what I mean?
And even that, you look at the flared magwell there. Hopefully, in a home defense scenario, I'm just loading one mag, and I'm not worried about mag changes, right? Like, hopefully, you can stop the threat within a single mag. Yep. But I can also see, like, if that's something, you might be putting in a mag, so maybe you just want the ease of operation of even inserting that first mag, right? But even if it just matches your other ones, just having everything fit and
Right.
feel the same.
They're nice to have the flared mag wells. These are flared mag wells from a company called HRF. I would say in like low light conditions, it just makes it really easy to just find that mag well. Under nods, it's really nice. But people have been finding mag wells with magazines for a long time without it. I just think that because I wanted that kind of performance out of and kind of have the continuity across the board, just why not? You know what I mean? In fact, like I would say a lot of deal breakers for me, like I like have to haves. I'm just a big fan of the bad lever. So and that's not that expensive. You're looking at like $20-$30.
Install time is maybe 45 seconds.
Yeah, if that.
I don't have those.
Oh, we gotta
Get
hook
you-
you up,
get you some.
man. Yeah, some people have called those the best thing since sliced bread.
I think I have like.
Can you show? I don't.
So here, the way they work is that guys, so they install on an already existing bolt release,
Okay.
right? So it's just like two pieces they sandwich on, and you tighten that screw up, and you're done, right? So now that my bolt's kind of locked to the rear here, this is the other side of that bad lever. So if I press that down, I send the bolt forward.
Right.
So I'm not on the hook for reaching over here every time and sending the bolt forward with the bolt release.
I feel embarrassed. I probably should be embarrassed.
Because there might be people out there
There's
that
a lot
know.
of things you should be embarrassed about, but this is definitely not knowing about
So-
this thing is not one.
So here's another thing.
Well, now
so
you got me. I've got all sorts of anxiety over like the other things that you're thinking about. Great. Thanks,
so that's
Jim.
if
You got me back. You got me back.
You're welcome.
Yeah, the tables have turned. So that's if I press down on that button. Now, if I hold that button up and run the charging handle, I lock it to the rear
Oh, sweet.
without having kind of to release the fire control unit on the rifle. And
They came up with just a kind of a when you look at it, it looks a little goofy in some ways, but they came up with a really elongated and cantilevered extension of the thing that already existed on the AR. And it requires next to no work to actually put this thing on. It is awesome.
Yep. So I would say bad lever might be a deal breaker, or something that I've just run them enough to where I just have to have. You know what I mean? I think that the ambi safe is nice to have as well, and being able to, these are radiant safeties that you can make into 45 degree safeties, so you don't have to go all the way 90 degrees. Not saying that extra 45 degrees is somehow like a time suck or anything like that, but it's a nice to have again. But it's something that I've kind of gotten used to.
If once you get used to those and you go back to the 90 degree, you do find.
Oh my gosh! I'm still on safe.
I'm out of the fight.
I know. Sometimes the hardest part is doing it with your pinky in the air, but like I have found occasionally I'll short stroke the 90 degree somewhat.
That's
like
fair.
I brought it to like 88 and then it's still on or something. You know. So, but with the 45 degree, it's just so quick to just off.
Right. It's
I'm
nice,
sure
man.
that, or I would think also that again goes back to like what are you used to, and keeping that consistent, because that actually could be I don't know, like even just like when something feels different, it leaves question marks in your head.
It does.
So I'm gonna date myself a little bit, right? I bought these safeties for all my ARs, and I left it in 90 degrees.
Wow.
So I had these safeties for a long time.
I have the option to be better, but
I didn't know I had the option.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I didn't know. I was like, does Radiant make like a standalone 45 degree? And I was like, no, dude, just flip the pin. And I went, it was just a revelation that kind of, it blew my mind. So
you've got the same pistol grip here. Now that I imagine.
Which one is that?
This is a BCM.
Yep, a BCM Gunfighter Mod 3.
Mod 3.
Yeah.
Now that plays in, I'm sure, to your presentation of the gun, right?
100%.
Like pistol grips aren't necessarily like, I think people sometimes swap them out. Like they swap out, I don't know, like whatever. I set myself up for that one. Okay, but anyway, they swap them out a lot, or they have all kinds of different ones on different guns. But it plays into kind of how the gun feels. You know, it's other than the handguard, it's the part you interact with the most.
Contact point for sure.
Yeah. I just like these because it's a little more of a vertical angle than like a standard A2. Where an A2, like I feel like there's a little more of an angle here. I just like to keep things as neutral as possible, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. I involve like these three fingers here in making sure that they don't become interested in what this finger's doing, and I'm not like pushing in the shots. Although like I'm able to hide a lot of those inconsistencies and what this hand is doing with the other 4 points of contact. You know what I mean? So yeah. But it's just it's just a comfort thing, and then like setting the gun up for me
Right.
And my wife shoots them very well. She loves that angle as well. She big fan.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you said setting the gun up for you, I mean, where you've placed everything on these guns, I think this is just something that's worth mentioning to everybody. Don't look at Chris's gun. Despite all the experience he has, the fact that he's an instructor, he knows a lot of what he's doing. Don't look at his gun and just be like, oh, he's got that, vertical grip there, or he's got his switch there, or his flashlight's mounted there, or he uses this, whatever it is, and just photocopy it and put it on your own AR, because it takes some finagling to get it set up right for you. Like, oftentimes people, around the office, it's like show and tell every day, I swear, with people's ARs or something like that. But it's like, hey, check this out. And you pick it up and you're like, oh, this is really cool. But a lot of times you can tell when you've like picked someone else's AR up, because you're like, it doesn't feel right to me. You know what I mean? And I'm sure I could get used to it, but like, if you've got something that you're jiving with that's working, it's best to stay with that.
Well,
unless you're invested in like changing up kind of what you're doing, or if you are, we've said this before too, sometimes people invest too much into how it feels, but they're like new to firearms and shooting in general, so it's kind of like, can you really trust your feeling at that point, because you have yet to adapt, like, or
get an appreciation for
a good feeling innately. But I think once you do get that dialed in, you can always just tell when you pick up your AR. I know I can tell when I pick up mine, because everything is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. I would say like my first experience, of course, shooting these things were back in boot camp in 2003. I picked up a a 20-inch A3, and I was like, well, I don't want that. You know what I mean? So I've in my adult life, I've been able to play a lot of Legos, let's say, with these things. And that's one of the cool things about the AR in general, right? That it's so customizable, right?
Yeah.
So like trying to clone something that some other unit or some other person did, I think is kind of a mistake. You do have to get a feel for how the gun moves, how it's going to report and recoil. Wow, I just said that really weird. Recoil for you, and then go from there. If you don't like the way it moves or what your sights look like when in follow through, then obviously do something about it. You know what I mean? But I would, like I said, there's a lot of guns out there that are just fine out of the box. Like, you don't have to nerd out as much as I did, and that's what I tell my buddies to do, man. They're like, hey man, I'm looking to pick up my first AR. Do you just like, I send them links, a bunch of options, and the pros and cons to each. And then if they're interested and if we want to have that talk, we can certainly talk about like other accessories. You know what I mean? But man, as long as you have a method of confirming where it's pointed, an optic, you know what I mean? And when you take the safety off and you press the trigger, it goes boom, I think you're in a pretty good place. You know what I mean?
I like it. Should we end with the most important thing on the table?
The wedgets.
Oh, the thing that you have a question mark over your head about that thing?
Yeah, what do you got going on there? This is a lot fancier. Ryan's got a doorstop that he uses sometimes too.
Yeah.
So you don't even know. Chris has a whole presentation about doorstops.
Yes, I'm a big fan. So when I first got exposed to these things during my days on SWAT, we first started our wedging experience with just wooden doorstops. Like we made our own, right? But the problem there is they don't have a lot of friction. So if you get wood on like, semi-hard surface, it's just there's not going to be any resistance there, right? So the reason that we like these is that they have all these different surfaces, and each one has an application, and they're rubberized, right? So that that texture interacts well on hard surface. Oh man, it does great on carpet. Like if you have a door that opens in on you, like most bedrooms in the Midwest, I mean that's the way they are. Like everything else is kind of hardwood, but you get into that bedroom and it's carpet. You know what I mean? Like these things are going to bite into carpet and make it really, really difficult for someone to kind of push that door open on you.
Break the door off the hinges. Flatten the door.
Like you can only hope to gap incrementally, but think about how much time that's taking for an intruder, and
how much noise,
how much time they're giving you to make a decision and do what you have to do. But yeah, it's like anything else, man. These are a delay tactic. They're not really like I'm going to put that there and that door isn't going to move. right? Because you have doors have other weak points. They have hinges, and you know, if you do get the door open, or if it's not locked, like you certainly have that bowing or that yawing that happens. And you know, there's a bunch of different ways that you can get in on someone. But yeah, these do make really good delays, and buy you back a lot of time, in my opinion. So like one of the things that we'd like to do as a family is like we'll just rehearse, and like you know, a certain individual in my family knows that, you know, their job is this guy, like nothing else. Like when we're all inside, you get to put those on the door. You know what I mean? And so we make it kind of a game, and you know, we don't make it super heavy for the youngins. But everyone has a job, and you know, it's one of the last things.
Everybody's dead. You did 3 seconds.
You didn't do
fault.
it. Beep. You know, I'm wearing that obnoxious stopwatch around and I have an air horn.
How does it feel?
Yeah.
How does it feel to know that you let us all down?
Yeah. Anyway, so we use them more in the context like to keep doors open, like after clears, right? It's just an easy way to just shove this and keep a door open to know that beyond a shadow of a doubt I've cleared this part of the structure.
Okay.
But they also work great in keeping doors closed, man. You know what I mean?
When you first brought it out, I was only, because that's the only context I've used a doorstop was to hold a door open.
Right. Yeah.
And then when you're like, oh yeah, it's a delay test, like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And they work. You can lay them like this way, where like this rubber texture is kind of under the door. But if you have like higher doors, like in basements, what's another good example? Like front doors tend to be pretty high because you have that that little step over to get over. But you can actually put them in the door like that, and they will do a really good job of coming to a stopping point and delay there as well. So yeah, they're on Amazon. They're just something that's become a kind of staple in our home defense plan.
The Wedge IT.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise known as
the Wedget.
Yeah, or you could read it like that too.
The Wedge 1T.
I'm such a computer guy, Jim.
The Wedge Information Technology.
But yeah, to answer your question, man, that's what they are.
Cool.
Totally tactics. Yep. Also, furniture and other things can be wedged into places to keep doors from opening. So, I mean, you don't have to buy like, $11, $10, widget or wedget or just a thing. But I just think having a purpose-driven tool for that purpose is pretty powerful.
Where do you keep that in the house? And then where do you keep that? It's kind of like, that's somewhat odd. You know what I mean? Like when you're like, where do you keep that?
So I just try to keep them
next to the door.
Yeah, exactly. Just so if a door opens in a certain way, I'll keep it right there on the hinge side, right? So it's not visible to like my youngest, and he'll like pick them up and move them all over the place. Like if the door's open, it's hidden right there, and when the door closes, oh, there it is. Boom! I can put it in.
Makes a lot of sense. You're not like somebody go to the drawer and get the
same place people keep most doorstops.
Or if you
not a big doorstop guy,
if you have like a walk-in closet or something like that, a lot of those will have the shelving units. I'll just put it like eye level, either on like a mounting like bracket or a hook or something, and I'll just make it to where like it's impossible to not see.
Chris couldn't help himself; he had to get tan, but I found bright green ones.
I was gonna say I noticed.
But you know what? Those are good.
Lime green.
Yeah, I think having
ugly.
It's like with tourniquets, man. Like a tourniquet this color on me would probably be the worst thing ever made. You know what I mean? But like having like a bright orange or a bright not a bright blue, those are trainers, but like a bright orange tourniquet, something that pops, I think is wise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm all about the highlighter green.
Yeah.
Like those we've actually bought those for students. Like these were the first run because I was left to do that. And
somebody said, "Hey Chris, go get these," and he was like, "Okay, cool."
I was
they'll
like,
be
bet,
tan.
bet.
I was gonna say it has nothing to do that you possibly have some sort of affinity towards like FDE.
I don't know if you noticed, but this 10.3 gun in front of us, it's entirely tan.
I thought
aside from a few little metal pieces, it's basically entirely tan, and the inside of the receiver.
I thought the only reason Chris brought the black one was to just show how inferior it was, just because it's not.
Right.
Yeah, there's that too, guys. Like
FDE.
Getting an FDE gun will increase your chances of surviving a home defense situation. I don't know, by 73% was the last numbers I pulled. Yeah,
the way you said that, it sounds like you heard it on Detroit Urban Survival Training.
Hey, intelligence
increase your probability.
Get an FDE gun. Yeah, man.
I like them.
Yeah. ARs are cool.
They're great tools, man.
They're absolutely great tools.
Versatile.
and everyone should have one.
Violence at a distance, man. That's what I'm all about.
I like it. Well, Chris, thank you very much. Jim, thank you.
You're welcome, Mark.
And thanks everybody for listening. Let us know what are your thoughts on this podcast. Is the AR your primary home defense? How is yours set up? Any cool ideas? We like ideas.
I love ideas.
I
love FDE too.
And is your AR FDE? Maybe it should be. Chris will say yes. 10 out of 10 Chris's say
72%.
yes. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Well, happy hunting and shooting. Be safe out there. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye. There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.